When going global, it's important to start small and then scale. But how do you decide from which part of the experience you should start? Hello and welcome to Global SaaS Focus. This is a series of short podcasts that explore key topics about growing B2B SaaS businesses in other countries. I'm Nicola Calabrese, founder of Undertow. We create and manage localization programs for B2B SaaS companies so they can grow globally.
And my name is Clément Dumont. I'm one of the co-founders of the Growth Syndicate, and we help B2B tech companies with their growth strategies.
Today, we're going to discuss how companies can start small and then scale up to make their international expansion a success. Clément, what are your initial thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I think it's a really good question that doesn't have an easy answer per se. I think will again depend really on your industry, the type of companies you're in. I would start with the basics. So I think what we discussed already a bit, everything around market research, understanding where you get a bit of traction. So that will obviously depend on your business model. But let's say you're in a SaaS company, if you start having some volume, a little bit of traction, it's not uncommon to start seeing, people from other countries actually finding you, trying to request a trial or like testing your product. And, you have to start identifying as well, okay, where do I start getting some traction here? I think that's a good starting point as well, to put next to the market research. Obviously, everything that's, market research is talking about the market, but also everything related to the competitors, understanding, is it a saturated market? Is it not? What is the total addressable market? How big can it go? And also what efforts will take me to enter this market? Because if you're, let's say, based in Germany and you want to enter in the Netherlands, it's a totally different ballpark than if you're based in Germany and you want to enter in China or Japan, right? Regulations are different. You have 10, 12 hours of time difference. So it's a different beast to actually tackle. So I think what I understand for me by starting lean, I think first of all, starting lean is a luxury that not all companies have. Unfortunately, again, it will depend on industry. Again, if you're a SaaS company, chances are that you already know, if you want to localize or expand to new market, then it means that you already have some traction in your local market. You already know what works. So you can kind of take elements that you already think are working or have high chances of working, and then you can duplicate those to experiment, right? So on the marketing side, if you're a SaaS, it could be something as simple as some localization on some key pages, could be some Google Ads, could be some SEO, could be some ABM. You can try different things, actually see where it works while keeping your product in English, depending obviously again on the market, but maybe at the beginning you can start keeping it in English. While if you're in a totally different industry, maybe that you don't have a choice because you just have to, get a factory somewhere, a warehouse somewhere, or you need to, you actually need a full team in place with local expertise that can go to places. So it's a totally different, I think, game depending on your industry.
And I think it's really important to keep in mind that the people that, especially in SaaS, the people deciding to buy a SaaS product is not necessarily the people using it. So you might have like decision makers that are fine with English, but the actual end users definitely need your product localized in the native language. And that's connected as well to the hires, like hiring people in the market, like figuring out, analyzing the way you actually usually conduct business in your home country, how it's going to change maybe in the new market, and understand, let's say, if it's necessary to hire salespeople right away, or if you can do more like a product-led motion first, and then decide to hire sales, or not open an office right away necessarily, depending on the market, but you might just hire, let's say, remote salespeople, and then after you get some traction, you actually set up a whole office. And testing, again, this is important, testing the messaging and see if the messaging that is working in your home market, is it working exactly the same in the new market, or maybe you need to do some changes. So when you start with the localizing the experience, starting from the, let's say, what we call minimum viable experience, so the minimum touch points that you need to provide a consistent experience to the local users, without having to do everything at once. So the whole, rather than do the whole website, maybe you create like a micro version of the website, but at least it's a consistent experience. So they get an onboarding in the language, and then they go into the app in the language. They get a help center articles mentioned in the onboarding emails, maybe that they are localized, so they don't end up on English pages. And then again, figuring out if you need support in the language. So that will be hires that you will do locally potentially. Yeah. And then gradually expand on this.
Yeah, I totally understand. And I think it's SaaS, I think is a good business model to actually go abroad with, because I think compared to a lot of, I would say, more traditional industries out there, is probably easier or a bit leaner or maybe a bit more cost effective, because I think a lot of us, both live in different countries. We both probably use the same tools and they probably both in English, right? Especially I would say in the marketing sphere. And even if your English is not perfect, I think there's a lot of market where everything that's communication, the awareness part can be done on the local language and needs to be in the local language if you really want to, to crack it. On the other hand, it's okay to have your product, at least for the beginning, in English, because people are used to, use those type of tools in English. Again, it depends, right? If you target software engineers or marketeers abroad, chances of them speaking some English, they can use your SaaS is pretty high. If at the end of the day, your SaaS, you're targeting whatever municipalities in the center of France, and then you don't have, you have everything in English, then you're going to have a problem, right? So those are the kind of questions you have to ask yourself before localizing.
Yeah, I think that's a really point to close on, like making sure that you clear what your local user are going to need. And depending on that, you can adjust your strategy.
Yeah, exactly.
Hi, Nicola here. Thank you for joining us on this special episode of the Multilingual Content Podcast, powered by Undertow. We create and manage localization programs for B2B SaaS companies so they can grow globally. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and remember to subscribe and give 5 stars to our podcast. Your contribution makes all the difference. See you next time.